Assalamu alaikum, my name is Halima and welcome to another episode of Quran Rehab's Q&A series, where again I'm here answering questions that you've emailed to info@quranrehab.com about myself, Quran Rehab and our general relationship with the Quran. So inshallah, let's get cracking with the first question. So the first question is from Mohandis Khan, who asks, what was the fundamental reason that inspired you to start your journey to memorize the Quran? Well, that's a really good question. And I would probably say there were two key events in my life that kind of propelled me into memorizing Quran on a serious level. The first one was when I was around the age of 15. So what had happened is all of our lives as kids, me and my siblings, our parents sent us to some weekend local Islamic schools. And we had just recently moved to one that was called Afnan, that was close to our home. And shortly after we had arrived, they actually announced that they were going to have their first Quran competition. Now, contrary to the typical certificate and boxed gift that they usually give winners, the Afnan staff actually announced that they were going to award the 3 top winners of the Quran competition with a free trip to Hajj. Now, as you can imagine, this was an amazing opportunity. And I remember being super excited, running home to my parents and telling them about it. And alhamdulillah, they were really supportive and they encouraged me and told me to go ahead and do my best. Now, being the kind of very competitive, self-driven type of person that I am, I saw this as a really good challenge. I love to learn and challenge myself, so I was really in my element. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, it was going to be a challenge because I couldn't actually read any Arabic at the time. I didn't have any teacher or anything like that, specifically for my Quran memorization. But I remember that I did have one really big cassette box that my dad had bought me, old school cassettes of the Quran recited on these cassettes. And I remember having a very simple Arabic learning book with Arabic alphabets and things like that. So this was a challenge that I was willing to take, and I remember spending hours and hours and hours just listening to it, writing down transliteration, repeating it, listening to it, etc. Side point actually, for people who are memorizing Quran, if you can, please stay away from transliteration. It's a terrible idea when memorizing the Quran. Very easy to make pronunciation mistakes and things like that. Anyway, back to the story. So I had, I think, about 2 to 3 weeks or something like that. It was a very short period of time to learn about 35 surahs or something like that of the juz. And I remember when the day came for the exam, it was very nerve-wracking. We actually had to sit with the participants that we were competing against in the same room, so they had to hear they could actually hear our recitation. So we would get our name called up, sit at the front across the table from the teacher. She would recite from anywhere randomly in the Quran and we would just have to continue. So I think I was called about 3rd or 4th, and alhamdulillah, when I sat down, I was kind of calm, but I just remember just zoning out and not remembering actually what I was reciting. She would just mention an ayah and it would just flow, alhamdulillah. And yeah, I remember feeling quite confident at the end and feeling that it was quite good. I don't think I recall her correcting any mistakes or anything. And then, alhamdulillah, when the day did come for announcing, they actually announced my sister's name instead of my own as a mistake. Luckily, she wasn't there at the time. And then they announced my name as the first winner. And I remember feeling ecstatic and very happy. And I think that was probably one of the reasons that propelled me into Quran memorization. So it wasn't just the fact that obviously I won a free trip to Hajj, which was amazing. It was the fact that I had proved to myself that I could achieve a lot with very little resources, just having the drive and trying to utilize anything that I did have access to. So alhamdulillah, by the will and grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I managed to win first place and also do Hajj that year, which was absolutely phenomenal. But I would say that the main key event that led me to memorize Quran on a serious level, and the main reason for it, was maybe a few years later. I remember being in 6th form and I had become a bookworm. I absolutely used to love to read, and especially about the deen. And for those who can remember what EMA was, very old school, I remember basically, for those who don't know what it is, EMA was a certain amount of money that the school used to give you to help buy books and things like that. I remember whenever I used to get my EMA money, I used to just run to the Islamic bookshop that was local to me, and I used to just spend it on books and CDs and things like that about religion and whatnot. And I would spend every minute I could reading books. So whether that was on the bus or walking in the street or at home at night, I just absolutely loved reading. And the more and more I used to read, the more and more I used to fall in love with Islam and fall in love with the Quran. And this kind of solidified when I did my degree in Islamic studies. And I think the more and more I studied, and the more and more I developed an emotional connection with the Quran, the more and more I wanted to memorize the Quran. So the Quran would become something that every time I used to read it, it used to leave me speechless. It used to move me. It was something that I couldn't get enough of. You know the feeling that you get when you haven't drank water for a long time and all of a sudden you've become so thirsty, you feel like you can drink a couple of tanks worth of water? That's literally how I used to feel when I didn't read or listen to the Quran for more than a day or 24 hours or something like that. And I think that love for the Quran, it used to really propel me to want to memorize it. I used to think, subhanAllah, how beautiful and powerful these words are. I imagine if I could have such words engraved within my heart and mind. So I always advise people who are thinking about memorizing the Quran, the best way to motivate yourself and things like that is basically to build a very good relationship with the Quran that can propel you forward into memorization. Now, I have more of my story mentioned on my website at quranrehab.com for anyone who wants to read it, inshallah, but I think I'll leave it there for now. So let's move on to the second question, inshallah. The second question is from Sarah Fatima, who asks, what time of the day is best to memorize Quran? Well, in answer to your question, Sarah, it's my belief, and this is something that I've actually echoed throughout various different videos, and that is that our spiritual journeys and our journey towards spiritual fulfillment is something that's very personal to us all. And that includes how we approach building a relationship with the Quran and memorizing it as well. So we should always be considerate of the type of person that we are as individuals. And this includes whether or not we are, early birds or night owls.
Now, I know there are some ahadith that specify certain times of the day that are blessed, and inshallah, we should try to utilize those times to gain benefit from it. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we are individuals. So, if you do struggle to wake up a few hours before Fajr to memorize the Quran, that shouldn't stop you from being able to memorize the Quran at a time when you are most productive or when practically speaking it's easy for you to do so. So, for example, I'm a night owl, and I don't feel guilty about, writing my schedule and organizing it according to time when I'm most energetic, according to time when I, practically speaking, have time to focus on certain things like my Quran memorization. So there's no wrong or right answer, because we are all different. We all have different lifestyles. Some people are parents, some people are students, some people simply are not morning people, some people are night owls, etc. So we should just work, inshallah, according to when we are most productive and when practically speaking we can do so. To gain clarity on when exactly is the best time for you to do so, to memorize your Quran, I would probably say think back to a time when you were the most productive, to a time where you were just on fire, and ask yourself the question, what time of day was it? What kind of environment were you working in? And basically try to jot these down in a journal and try to use a few examples that have happened at different times in your life. And you will, inshallah, start to notice patterns in terms of the environment, in terms of the time of day and things like that. And inshallah, try to incorporate your Quran memorization according to those natural patterns of productivity and free time, etc. Inshallah. Okay, so the last question is from Zainab, who has asked me to elaborate on my upcoming events and what they're about. Okay, inshallah. I actually have two events, so I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but inshallah, I'll give a quick breakdown as to both of them. I have an event entitled Seasons of the Heart, a Quranic guide through emotional forecasts, and that's basically about emotional management, a topic that I'm very passionate about, as you could probably tell from a bunch of videos I did previously on the subject. And it just basically tackles the concept of emotional management and emotions from the perspective of the Quran, because we actually have a lot of misconceptions as Muslims nowadays, and it's something that causes a lot of people pain. So I'm sure you hear people say, oh, you're depressed, it's probably because of a lack of iman. or you're feeling anxiety because you don't actually have enough trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, etc. And there's all these misconceptions. So inshallah, in the event, I'll be covering the Islamic view versus our cultural beliefs about emotions, the purpose and role of emotions. I will be going through the 10 negative emotions and what their hidden messages are. I will also be talking about 3 techniques for instantly changing the way you feel. I will be talking about, inshallah, some techniques for managing fear from the life of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. And I might be throwing in a few bonus tips and techniques as well on other emotions, inshallah, and how to manage them. As for the second event is called And Then She Found True Love, an A to Z on falling in love with the Quran. So this is a topic that I've created because I feel like there's a very big need for people to create an emotional attachment and connection with the Quran so they can really feel the relevance to their daily life and their need for the Quran. And this kind of follows a 4-step process that I'm going to go through. So in the first section of the event, I will be covering our perception of the Quran. So this will include what misconceptions we have. This will include what exactly we want as individuals to really achieve with the Quran and what exactly is holding us back from that and how to eliminate it, which is very exciting. Secondly, will be my favorite part of the event, which will be talking about how to create an emotional connection to the Quran. So we're going to be talking about tips and techniques on that are very interesting. Thirdly, we're going to talk about how to incorporate and integrate the Quran into your daily life. So this will be about how to make that journey with the Quran personal to you, about your motivational factors, about how best you learn, etc., and time techniques and things like that. And the last section of that event will be about how to sustain that relationship with the Quran long term. So how is it that we can create powerful states so that every time we approach our Quran time and our Quran memorization and study, we can always do so in a very positive and powerful and productive state so we don't get burnt out, etc. Some tips and techniques for how to improve your understanding instantly of the Quranic Arabic and things like that, and inshallah a lot more as well. And I hope inshallah to be seeing all of you soon at one of these events. If you do have any questions, inshallah, feel free to drop an email to info@quranrehab.com. My name is Halima. You've been watching Quran Rehab's Q&A series. So until next time, inshallah, take care.